hope everyone's had a good year. I think 21 has been better than 20. We still got a pandemic going on around us, I guess, and we still have a lot of turmoil in our country, but we have made it to where we're at, and we're all here this morning. We're able to get here, so we praise God for that. Anybody got a word of thanksgiving that you want to say before we get started? I'm not going to talk that long this morning. Y'all don't believe me, but I promise. Anybody got a word of thanksgiving? Got to be somebody. I wouldn't have said it if somebody didn't need to stand up and say something. Anybody? Okay, we're going to, nobody wants to talk today. Amen. You go, Miss Gwen. During World War II, I can't say World War II, was reading this past week that there was a concentration camp that was in Eastern Europe that started an uprising against the captors, the Nazis, trying to kill all of the Jews. And this uprising, there's about 700 prisoners that took part in it. They rebelled there in the prison, and about 300 of them made it all the way out into the edge of the forest. Of all of those that got out there, they said 100 of them were known to survive. But my story that I want to tell you zeroes in on 3 teenage boys in that group that got out. And they were hiding in the woods in fear for their life. So they would hide during the day, and they would travel at night because they were fueled by the hope of being able to survive. So after 4 nights of wandering in the forest to make their way out of there to survive, they came to a clearing in the trees, and they could see the sunshine hitting on the buildings that were in front of them. They got all excited, and joy filled their hearts. But as they approached joyfully, they discovered that the buildings in front of them were the concentration camp that 4 days earlier they had fled from. They had spent 4 days and 4 nights literally traveling in a circle to only come back to the exact place that they left. I remember Al telling me years ago, about maybe when he first got here, if you ever get lost in the woods and you don't have a compass, most people will do that exact thing. Even if you go 200 yards one way, eventually, if you don't have a compass or know where you're going, you'll just make a big circle in the woods. It's so easy to do. But they made a big circle, and they wandered, and they came back exactly where they started. The reason why I say that this morning is because that's where Solomon is right here in the book of Ecclesiastes. He had turned from God. He had tried to live the best life he could live without God. Now we come to the book of Ecclesiastes, and he regretted it because his life made one big circle, and he ended up right where he had started. Wandering. That's what we do so much of the time. Because we don't have a clear agenda and a clear purpose, we're pursuing a great, good life, but we're pursuing it a lot of times apart from God. And it's just like Solomon tells us all the way through the book of Ecclesiastes, that it's all vanity, that it's just striving against the wind. In the end, if you got a lot or if you got a little, he says it's meaningless. It doesn't matter. If you got good health and a lot of money in the bank and a great retirement, great this, great that, he said in the end, it just doesn't matter. But he comes to what he calls the conclusion of the whole matter. And he does that in chapter number 12. If you want to read it there, he says the conclusion, after he has spent 11 chapters over and over telling you some good positives, but it was always mixed with the negative that it equals nothing. And then he says the conclusion, when everything has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, good or evil. Solomon lays it all out there. And he comes all the way back to where he started. He says there's really only one conclusion that he can give his listeners. Fear God. Keep his commandments. Because one day we are going to see the Creator eyeball to eyeball and have to face him and face our future based off of what we've done with him. So really what Solomon was saying is you need to know him. You need to follow him. This is the duty of mankind, to love him, to serve him, to obey him. He brings it all back to that. It doesn't matter if you got a little bit of money or a lot of money. Rich, poor, doesn't matter what color you are, what nationality you are, what denomination your church is. When it's all said and done, you need to fear God and obey God and follow God and love God and serve God. Everything else finds its place when you fear God and you walk in his ways. You remember that Solomon, wisest man that ever lived, but yet so wise in so many ways that he wised himself away from God. You remember back when he builds the temple, he had the right motive and the right heart. And he asked for wisdom over money and riches. And all through the book of Proverbs, he tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord, to hold him in honor, to respect him, to honor him, to worship him, to have him in his rightful place, is the beginning of wisdom. the beginning of being able to live your life according to the way God has outlined for you and me to live. You know, I was reading yesterday, and over through the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon tells us to remember your Creator. Here on this Thanksgiving Sunday, I want to give you 4 things, and they all center in on remembering your Creator and fearing God and following Him. Some basic, simple things that we can take with us this morning that can help us stay on track or get back on track. Number 1, your life is thanksgiving, so express it. You need to express it. Your life is thanksgiving, and your life is thanksgiving every day. Every day. The book of Hebrews says that we should be offering up a sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving. That is the fruit of our lips, expressing to God and to the world just how awesome God is, our life is. You know, even when things don't go your way, there's so much to be thankful for. You know, Jesse told me a story, and even in the midst of tragedy, there's always something to be thankful for. But it's not always appropriate for you to tell somebody else what they should be thankful for. And Jessie said on the worst night of her life, she remembers one lady telling her, it's the truth, but it was just the wrong time. And that was, well, at least God let you keep one of your kids. That's true, and she is thankful for that. But on that night, when 2 of your babies just went to heaven to be with God, is not the time for us to be telling somebody they need to be thankful for the one that God left with them. That's the reason why any time you go to visit someone that has went through a tragedy, keep your lips sealed and just love them. Because anything you say, even if it's right, will come out wrong. But there is always something to be thankful for. Even in the midst of darkness. And if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, even up before Solomon comes to his conclusion, he says, chapter number 11, you're going to have many, many dark days. He says, we love the light. The light is awesome. It's beautiful. It's bright. It gives us hope, but life is going to be full of a lot of dark days. It's just how life is. Living here on this earth with the goodness of God mixing with the sin nature and the flesh of people all around us and the enemy all around us. There's just going to be good and there's going to be bad, but in it and through it all, your life and my life should just be a thanksgiving to God. No matter if it's a good time, a low time, a high time, a bad time, your life and my life, in all things, in everything, give thanks to the Lord. Because if we express that, it keeps us focused. We stay focused. We stay grounded. Just like Miss Gwen said a minute ago, if you keep your eyes on God and His agenda for your life, all of this in our world is going on, but you won't be focused on that. You'll be able to be a light in that realm if your focus is on God above. You know, things are going to change in your life. There's going to be seasons, and there's going to be spring, summer, fall, winter, And we know all of those seasons bring different things into our lives. There's a time for growth and prosperity. There's also a time to where God has to prune and cut back, and for you to be able to grow even bigger and stronger. And we might not always understand it, might not always be able to wrap our head around it. It's just like, how can you wrap your head around Nazis killing Jews in concentration camps and all the evil that took place during that time? You can't wrap your head around it. All of these children and families running for their lives and trying to survive from one day to the next. But we know in it all and through it all, in the world around us, no matter what's going on, our life is Thanksgiving. Number two, your life has a throne on it, and you need to examine it. Somebody or someone sits on the throne in your life. That's the reason why Solomon tells us over and over to remember your Creator, to fear God, to worship Him, and to love Him, and to respect Him, because somebody sits on that throne in your life. You know, when Solomon started out, God was sitting on His throne. But we know that after Solomon gets the temple built, he allows all this wealth and all these women. What, he had 700 wives and 400 concubines. If he had 7 wives and 4 concubines, he would have been led like he just got wrapped up in all of that. And that became his throne. You see, your throne is not anyone other than you. It's either you or God. Now, there could be a lot of things on that throne with you, but it all comes back to you. Either you're the king of your life or God is the king of your life. And there's a lot of things like if you look at your throne in your life, what is keeping you from being devoted to God? What is keeping you from fearing God and walking in His way and keeping His commandments and doing the things that God has called you to do? Why have you got off track? Why is it all about what you can get and how far you can go in life and trying to reach for life when you know that all of those things are going to come up empty? Yeah, you might make more, you might have more, but you might be miserable in it all. It's what Solomon was, the richest, wealthiest man ever to walk on this earth. All he could say was, it's all vanity, meaningless, nothing without God. On your throne today is either God or you. That's why we need to fear God and stand in awe of Him. He's your leader, your protector, your provider. He's your peace. He's your hope. He's everything. And He walks with us, leads us. I love Psalms 23. Forget about reading it at somebody's funeral. I mean, yeah, it's great for that, but it's great for life. He's your shepherd. He guides you in the pathways of righteousness. He makes us lay down in green. He leads us by the still waters. And even when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you don't have to fear, because He's with you on the side of the cliff. He's with you if you feel like you're about to fall off the cliff. And He is the only one that can prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies, so that they can see the goodness and the mercy and the awesomeness of God on your life without you having to utter a word. Your life is Thanksgiving. Your life has a throne on it, and you need to examine to see who's sitting on that throne. Number 3, your life is today. It's today. I can remember first church, it was great the first time around. The second time around, it was okay. The third time around, it was like, okay, I'm over it. Conley, First Baptist Church, Cindy's been in my life forever. She was on the pulpit committee there that interviewed me and called me in and called me to be their pastor. Probably, who knows, maybe they shouldn't have even called me. But she was there. She was a part of that. And it was Conley First Baptist Church. And you can even ride by that church today, a big old huge brick church. I mean, it's got two big huge wings on. It's got more Sunday school rooms and more big. I mean, you couldn't fill all the rooms up in this place, this building. They had rooms everywhere. They had rooms you didn't even know were there. And I can remember still 150 to 200 people there, even in 1997. But they were living in 1970. Because all of the people that were there in 1970. And in 1970 to 1974 was their prosperous years. They were growing, they were vibrant, they built this building, and they had all of these memories and all of these great things that God has done. But God hadn't done nothing in 20-something years. They had been dwindling down, 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 and they were still living in the glory days. Nothing wrong with the glory days. Somebody sung a song about that, didn't they? The glory days. They're there. Nothing wrong with looking back and reflecting. But you don't live there. Your life is today. Okay, God did something great back then. What's He doing in your life today? What's your testimony today? What is God doing in your life right now? How is He going to equip you to make a difference now, today? 3 things. First of all, you need to embrace it. You need to embrace the now. The now is all you got. You might not have an after a while. All you got is now. Our life is a vapor, mist, here, gone. You know, me and Jesse decided when we got married, we had two 12-year-olds then. Now they're both 14. They're same age, going through the same things, totally different personalities. But we just decided early on how we were going to make this work. And it's not that it doesn't get complicated every once in a while, but we're going to be together on having a front. But at the same time, you'll deal with Kenzie on discipline, and I'll deal with Megan. Well, she winds up having to help me a little bit more with Megan. But we try not to make each other the bad parent to the other kid that is in the marriage, because we just don't want to create that environment. But there's some things we're different on, but there's some things we're dead on. It's just like yesterday. I get to talk about Kenzie. Kenzie don't ever really want to do a whole lot. And Jesse's always trying to push her out and, to do something, to have more friends. Well, all of a sudden she calls yesterday. And Jesse calls me and says, her little girlfriend's got a boyfriend. He's 17 years old, dating a 14-year-old. I don't really know why. I can't wrap my head around that one. 19 and 16 doesn't sound as bad. 17 and 14 just, but anyway, he's a good kid. He's not a bad kid. But he's dating this little girl. They've known each other their whole childhood. But Kenzie wanted to take a trip with them down 36, about 13, 14 miles to another little person's house. Well, first of all, that was dead no right out of the gate for Jessie, because she's lost 2 kids in a car wreck. She's not going to let Kinsey get in the vehicle with a teenage kid. It's not going to happen. It's just not. But you know what? My answer was no, too. She said, well, if I called you right now and asked you if Megan could ride with a 17-year-old to somewhere else, it'd be no. Now, I know I'm going to have to cross that bridge one day to where she's going to have to get in a car with another young man. But not at 14, I don't have to cross that bridge. And I wasn't even thinking I was going to have to cross that bridge at 15. I was thinking 16. Maybe toward the end of 15. But you know what? Kids don't get it. Kids don't get it. They don't get, they just see you're saying no. They don't get why you're saying no. You would have thought Kinsey would have got her saying no, but they just get wrapped up in their minds of where they're at today. We just don't know what is there. We're there to protect our children. That's all we can do until they're 18. When you're 18, you're an adult. When you're 18, you're an adult. You can do whatever you want to when you're 18. That is if you're out of my house. Now, if you're still in my house at 18, there's still going to be some kind of rule somewhere. But they just think they all grown up and they just want to be on their own. But life, they just don't realize life. They don't realize what they hold in their hand. This technology, there's predators out there. There's people preying on the people stealing young girls to traffic them is off the charts. Atlanta, top market in the world. It's real. But to them, because whatever, they just don't see it. Just goes right by them. God gave you today. You better live today to the fullest, because that's all you got. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow may not come. Second of all, not only embrace it, but you need to enlist your life. You need to give your life back to God. You need to give your life away. You need to make your life count. You need to make your life matter. You need to make a difference. You need to be kind. You need to be humble, be gentle, be giving, be compassionate. You need to value others. You need to give hope to others. You need to give Jesus to others. You know, I was at Mama and Papa's a couple weeks back, and Slade had written them a letter that they had up on their thing, which was one of the sweetest letters ever that a grandkid could write to their grandparents. Just sweet. Of basically, your life has mattered because it has impacted my life. You've taught me how to be a man. You've taught me how to blah, 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 blah. That's what it's all about. That's life. That's life. I mean, a lot of time we don't really tell people how much they mean to us. But when you see it like that with a letter or whatever, that's where life is. People need to hear that. If they mean that to you, they need to hear that. Because that's what life is really all about. You know, you go your whole life being kind, being humble, being giving. Sometimes you think it doesn't work, but it's working. It's working. It may take a couple of decades for you to reap the dividends of it, but it's working. You need to embrace it. You need to enlist it. Third of all, you need to enjoy it. I get told I'm crazy all the time. I try to enjoy life. Don't get me wrong. I get grumpy and I get irritated. Ask Jess. She can tell you. I do. Just like anybody else, I'm human. I'm like everybody else. But I try to have fun. I try to. That's what I love about being with her is she thinks I'm crazy and she loves it. She loves me for me. And we just laughed and laughed. You know, we just flew to Texas this past weekend. I wasn't here last Sunday. And I haven't had to wear the mask for any extended period of time here the last few months here. And so we were getting on a plane. So we had to wear this mask. You know, flight was 2.5 hours. Had to wear it before we got on there. And I was so over this mask. You know, I'm sweating. I can't breathe. It's like everything. So I took some gum out of my mouth and I just stuck it right on the front of my mask. I just left it there. The gum sticking right on the front of my mask. So they're coming. They're giving me, you know, they're giving you your snack, your water, blah, blah, blah. And then this might not be funny to y'all, but we rode and we laughed and we cried. And it was just spontaneous is what made it so fun. But they're coming by. You know, if you've ever been on a flight, you know how they're making their last little come-bys, getting up all the trash and everything. And they'd already been looking at me like I'm like, well, what am I doing? And she comes by, you got any trash, anything? You know, we throw a few things in there. And she takes 2 steps back. And I said, wait a minute. And I pulled my gum, and it stuck, and it like went out. If you were there, me and Jesse rode till we cried. And that woman looked at me like I was not somebody good. But I was just trying to have fun. I was just like it was just fun. We laughed till we cried, didn't we? You want to laugh right now, don't you? Because we were there. We were in it. But you need to enjoy life every day. You don't have to have money to enjoy life. You can be broke and enjoy life because it's an attitude. It's a choice. Fourth of all, your life is a treasure, and you need to eternalize it. That means everything in your life is eternal. So you need to invest your life. Invest your life in people. Invest your life in relationships. Invest your life in ministry, in friends, family, co-workers, community, church. Invest your life. Because Jesus said in Matthew 6 that you can lay up treasures on this earth, but moth and rust are going to get them. They're not going to last. But he says you need to lay your treasures up in heaven to where nothing can get to them. They'll be there waiting on you, and they will last for eternity. And those are things that you do with your life, your testimony, your influence, your character, the impact that you make on other people's lives. Eternalize your life. Give it back to God. Invest it. And it will be the greatest investment you ever made. So on this Sunday, before Thanksgiving, make sure your life is on track and give God the thanksgiving he deserves, the throne he deserves, the today he deserves, and give him back the greatest treasure you ever received, and that's your life. Let's stand.